Hey, up, it's Steve from the old Yorkshire Geek, and I've got a little bit of a list to look at today to do with Star Trek, to do with Spock in particular. This is from Screen Rant. As usual, links in the description down below. Don't forget, like and subscribe, share the videos, drop a comment, hit the notification bell if you subscribed already. I'm also on Rumble and Spotify and Amazon Music Podcasts and Google Podcasts. You can also find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Links for all that's in the description as well. As I've links to my two books, I'll not show them. They're underneath something. Right, so let's have a look at this list. The list is every Spock love interest in Star Trek. Right, so hang on, got to make myself small, haven't I? As if I'm not small enough. There we go. Every Spock love interest in Star Trek. As one of the most popular characters in the Star Trek franchise, Spock has had many love interests, despite being a supposedly unemotional Vulcan, which is not. He's never been unemotional, ever, even in the original series, despite what people say. He tries to keep his emotions in check, and he manages most of the time, but quite often he does lose control of his emotions, either, for whatever reason. Right, anyway. Despite his logical Vulcan nature, Spock has had quite a few love interests during his tenure as a character in the Star Trek franchise. First introduced in Star Trek the original series, Spock became arguably the most popular and well-known character in the franchise, appearing in multiple series and movies and played by many different actors since his debut in 1966. Spock's struggle with his half-Vulcan, half-human nature is one that Star Trek audiences seem to find endlessly fascinating, and his complicated relationship with his more human emotions has been revisited repeatedly for almost every iteration of his character. Although Spock almost always tried to stick to the Vulcan way of life and suppress his emotions, there were times when they got the better of him. When this happened, one of the ways it manifested was in a romantic encounter, something that was usually the antithesis of Spock's personality and storylines, and thus very enjoyable for Star Trek audiences to watch. While Spock hasn't had a record breaking amount of romances during his time in the Star Trek franchise, all of them have been memorable in one way, in some way or another, and perhaps more interesting when they do happen because of their infrequency. Right, number one, to Pring. And there she is from the original series, and there she's from Strange New Worlds. T'Pring is arguably Spock's greatest Star Trek love interest, considering that she was once his fiancée. In Star Trek, the original series, Season 2, Episode 1, I mean, he introduced her as his wife, didn't he, in a mock time, but anyway. In Star Trek, the original series, Season 2, Episode 1, A Mock Time, Spock Leonard McCoy was forced to return to T'Pring, Arlene Martell, that's her, on Vulcan when he began undergoing the symptoms of Pon farr, the Vulcan drive to mate, which happens every 7 years in Vulcan males. The Vulcan females go through it as well. I don't think they do. Anyway, I could be wrong. While the original series made it seem like the couple wasn't particularly well acquainted, despite their marriage being arranged as children, Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 1 revealed that Spock, Ethan Peck, and T'Pring Gia Sandhu maintained a surprisingly loving relationship, choosing to become engaged as adults and striving to make their relationship work despite Spock's commitment to Starfleet. Now, a lot of people don't like that. They say it breaks canon. And it kind of does a little bit. But I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it, to be honest, because I like Strange New Worlds. And it does break canon quite often, but not super destructively, in my opinion. I think they'll explain things. Well, I hope they will anyway, and explain why things are slightly different to the original series. Unfortunately, by the time of Spock's Pon farr in the original series, the two had grown apart. It can't have been his first Pon farr, can it? I mean, he was 30-something years old, wasn't he, in the original series? So it can't have been his first. They're supposed to, undergo Pon farr every 7 years of their adult lives. Or does that mean Vulcans become adults later than humans? I don't know. Anyway, and their relationship ended after T'Pring chose the Caliphee ritual, Kunut Caliphee, during their wedding, forcing Spock to fight Captain Kirk to Kirk's supposed death. You saw some emotions there as well. when we found out, spoilers, that Kirk was still alive. Massive smile on Spock's face. Jim! At the time, Spock seemed less disturbed by the dissolution of his marriage than by the fact that he had apparently killed his captain. But Strange New Worlds introduced the idea that Spock and T'Pring were close cast. Eh? I don't know what that means. The end of their relationship. I don't know what that means. In a much sadder light. I've no idea. What does that mean? And T'Pring were close cast, the end of their relationship. I have no idea. I don't know. But it is going to be sad. If they do follow it on to the original series, she's going to spurn him at some point for Ston. That's who she spurs him for, isn't it? So it's going to be sad. Their breakup. After the events of A Mock Time, T'Pring was never seen or mentioned in Spock's life again. Number 2, Christine Chappell, and there she is in Strange New Worlds, and there she's played the late great Majel Barrett in the original series. Nurse Christine Chappell is Spock's second biggest Star Trek love interest, and like T'Pring, their relationship has been explored in both the original series and Strange New Worlds. Unfortunately for Nurse Chappell, Majel Barrett, the relationship in the original series was portrayed as largely one-sided, with Chappell harbouring extremely strong feelings for Spock, while Spock was unwilling to or uninterested in acknowledging them. I think he did acknowledge them, though, at some point. I'm sure he did. Although A Mock Time hinted that Spock might return Chappell's feelings under different circumstances, that's probably what I'm thinking of, her love for him remained unrequited throughout the original series, although it was frequently acknowledged in episodes. However, Strange New Worlds retconned Spock and Chappell's Jess Bush relationship into something much closer. Yeah, there's a bond between them. And obviously, Chappell, the Jess Bush Chappell, is obviously interested in Spock, and I think she probably even loves him. But I think Spock's a bit more ambivalent towards her. It is. I think he is fond of her, and as a friend, but I think he's because of his relationship with T'Pring in Strange New Worlds. I think he doesn't want to show that. But they are friends, and they have hugged and stuff like that. They are like close friends, but not. I won't say it. While season 1 largely stuck to the unrequited love angle, the trailer for Strange New World season 2 showed Spock and Chappell sharing quite a passionate kiss, and Spock displaying an emotional celebration afterwards. We see him giving it all that. We'll see what happens. If Spock and Chappell were indeed closer during their early years of working on the USS Enterprise, then Strange New Worlds has once again put a more tragic spin on one of Spock's biggest romantic subplots, given Chappell's pining after Spock during the original series. Yeah, we'll just have to see what happens, what they do with that. That's it. I don't think they'll acknowledge it. I think what they're doing essentially is rewriting the original series lore, and a lot of people don't like that, but you know. It is what it is, and I do enjoy watching it. So anyway, number 3, Lela Kalomi. Sounds like a song, doesn't it? That you sing on holiday. Sorry, it's Leela. Sorry, it's stupid text. Leela or Layla. Lela Kalomi. It still sounds like a song, doesn't it? By Mike and the Mechanics or Eric Clapton, whatever. Layla Kalomi, Jill Ireland, was one of Spock's one-off love interests during Star Trek the original series. A botanist, Layla met and fell in love with Spock prior to their on-screen meeting. Oh, right. Spock refused to admit any feelings for Layla initially. I've seen it, but I can't remember. But upon the Enterprise's arrival at Omicron Ceti 3, that rings a bell. Is that where the crystalline entity scoured the planet? I'm probably wrong. Layla deliberately infected Spock with the spores of the pod plant, causing him to experience emotions and profess his love for her in return. Spock intended to stay with Layla, but Captain Kirk was able to help Spock regain control by provoking him into anger. Slapped him about a bit, didn't he? And Spock's more logical side, reasserting itself, ended his and Layla's relationship for good. So getting angry, so forcing him to become emotional when they were emotional already, made his logical side reassert itself. That doesn't make a great deal of sense, does it? But never mind. To be honest, the original series quite often didn't make a great deal of sense, despite what some people might say. Number 4, The Romulan Commander. Yes, there were some amazingly great episodes, but there were more often some amazingly not great episodes, weren't there, in the original series? It was of its time. Although never given a name, the Romulan commander, Joanne Linville, proved to be an intriguing Star Trek romance for Spock. The two met when the Enterprise was sent on a secret mission to Romulan space to steal a cloaking device. When did the Treaty of Algernon happen? I don't know. Must have been after this. Captain Kirk and Spock orchestrated a ruse to get aboard the Romulan commander's ship, and while a disguised Kirk successfully retrieved the cloaking device, Spock allowed the commander to seduce him in an attempt to distract her. Although Spock was simply going along with the plan, he did state at the end of the episode that his feelings for the commander weren't entirely fake, hinting that he found her intriguing. There you go. So we see he does have feelings and emotions, he just suppresses them. Right, Zarabeth. This is an interesting one, and I don't think they mention what I'm going to talk about. But anyway, never mind. Zarabeth Mariette Hartley was Spock's final on-off love interest in Star Trek, the original series. Zarabeth and Spock met when she saved him and Dr. McCoy, DeForest Kelly, after they accidentally travelled through a time portal. This is in the episode. I can't remember. I can't remember the name of the episode. Oh, poo. I'll put it there. It's where they find the library with Mr. Atos, and it's on the planet Sarpedon, or Sarpedon, where the star's gone nova and it wiped out the population there. And there's time portals. The population escaped back in time into the planet's past. Right. I can't remember. Was it something like Time for Yesterday, something like that? Or was that a book? Anyway, I'll look it up. And as I said, I'll put it there. Because of the portal's effects, Spock began to regress evolutionarily and started displaying stronger emotions, causing him to fall in love with Zarabeth. However, Spock and McCoy learned that if they stayed, they would both die due to the time portal's effects. After some convincing, Zarabeth led them back to the portal's entrance, and she and Spock parted ways unhappily. Once back in the future, Spock's feelings for Zarabeth faded as his mind returned to normal. But if you read the books that followed it, I think Yesterday's Son and that might be Time for Yesterday. We find out that Zarabeth and Spock actually had a child called Zar, if I do believe, who were like half Sarpedon and half Vulcan, well, quarter Vulcan, quarter human. And he became a great ruler in Sarpedon's past because Kirk and the Enterprise, the refit Enterprise, travelled back in time to that period. And he was a cool character. He was really good. Anyway, number 6, but that's in a book by A.C. Crispin. 2 books by A.C. Crispin. Give them a look. And they're good. They're fun. Number 6, Savick. Spock and Savick were never officially romantically involved, but an intense scene in Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock, makes her an undeniable addition to Spock's love interests. During The Search for Spock, Savick, Robin Curtis, mated with Spock to keep him from dying during the ponfar he experienced while rapidly aging on the Genesis planet. I don't know if they're mated. I think they're sort of like, it was like a case of like heavy petting, I think, that helped him. But I don't think they actually, got down to it. But anyway, the film only implied that the two had been intimate, but there were plans for Savick to be pregnant with Spock's baby in subsequent movies. Or maybe they did then. These plans were ultimately scrapped, and Savick and Spock's relationship never progressed further, although the two were married in a few non-canon Star Trek novels. Okie dokie. Well, maybe they did get down to it then. They didn't show it, but I just got the impression that she just eased his urges somewhat without going all the way. Right, number 7, Nyota Uhura. Spock, Zachary Quinto. This is in the J.J. Abrams films. and Uhura Zoe Saldana were the main romantic couple in the Star Trek reboot films. You may ask why I like Strange New Worlds, but I don't like the J.J. Abrams films, because some people might think they're cut from the same cloth. But I don't think they are. I think the J.J. Abrams films are bloody awful. Anyway, I think they're just not good. They're well-made films. They're just not good Star Trek films. Whereas Strange New Worlds, I do enjoy, and I think it's good Star Trek. Fight me. Anyway, start again. Spock and Uhura were the main romantic couple in the Star Trek reboot films, which began with Star Trek 2009. Although Uhura, Nichelle Nichols, occasionally flirted with Spock on Star Trek the original series, their relationship was never anything more than colleagues. Star Trek 2009 chose to make Spock and Uhura a couple. However, a decision that was somewhat controversial for a variety of reasons and ultimately handled badly. Yeah, it was terrible. It was. No explanation. They were just together for some reason. Because of the reboot films, Uhura is perhaps Spock's third biggest love interest across the entire Star Trek franchise, although T'Pring and Nurse Chapel are considered in a much more favourable light. But yeah, it never made sense to anybody, really, why Spock and Uhura were a couple. It could be argued that he were following in his father's footsteps by taking a human mate. Because remember, Sarek married what's her face? Amanda Grayson. God, my memory, didn't he? And then went on to marry another human woman, later in his life, whose name I've also forgotten. But in the Next Generation, is it Perrin? Perrin, I think, her name, or something like that. Anyway, so he obviously liked his human women, didn't he? That was his kink, I suppose. Right, number 8. Why Spock never married in Star Trek? And there he is with T'Pring. He were about to clang the thing, and she put her hand there to stop him. There are several possibilities as to why Spock never married in Star Trek. Part of the reason is likely because romance was so incongruous with his character, given that the human form of romantic love was something he could never quite express, except under the influence of some outside force, not necessarily. Ultimately, Spock became married to his work for Starfleet. That's what it is. Yeah, his duty came first. First as an officer, and then as an ambassador for the Federation. And he also did his cowboy diplomacy on Romulus for a long time, didn't he? Spock's efforts to reunite the Vulcan and Romulan people consumed his attention for much of his later life, which likely would have made it hard for him to have a meaningful relationship with anyone, even another Vulcan. But we don't really know what happened to him after, because he travelled back in time, didn't he, into the Kelvin timeline after Romulus were destroyed. He travelled back in time, and he lived for, I presume, a few years after that, and then died. I think only died at the beginning of Star Trek Beyond, but we don't know what happened because Vulcan were destroyed, wasn't it, in Star Trek? I hate that film. And so we were helping the what were left of the Vulcan people, who are now an endangered species, who were helping them in their colonies and stuff, weren't he? And so maybe he met somebody there, but we don't know. Right, so that's it anyway. Spock's love interests. They don't mention. It's going to be a pause. It's going to be a bloody edit here. I can't remember a bloody name in Star Trek 6. No, I'm going to have to look it up. I'm going to have to look it up. Unbelievable. My stupid fucking brain. That's it. Oh, they didn't mention Valeris, did they, from Star Trek 6? Because there was some hint, there was some bond there between Spock and Valeris. He was a sponsor at the Academy, and he did get some, there was some that intimacy between them. He chose her to replace him on the Enterprise, and she said, "I can only succeed you." And in that scene, there were kind of a hint that something was going on. Plus, Spock did kind of, I don't know use the word, but violated her a bit, didn't he, with the mind meld? So, but that not really classed as a love interest, is it? I suppose. But there was that suggestion that their relationship was a little bit more than just, a mentor student kind of thing. That's what I took from it anyway. Right, we will leave it there. So, thanks for watching. Hang on, let myself big again. Thanks for watching. Wherever you are, look after each other, and until next time, I'll say the.